It should be right now.
I don't understand why this isn't recorded. Just give me 1 second.
I mean, they are listening. Like,
All right, you want to give one more shot? It's like 12:49, so we don't want to like.
Yeah, I'll just give it 2 seconds.
what am I saying?
We don't have a second. It is going. It's flashing red.
There's still enough residual
Look, if your
power.
phone is off.
Snowden was saying that even if your phone is turned off, they can still listen to it.
Yeah, that's why.
Even
Now,
if
a
you
lot of the
pull
phones
the
you can't
battery.
take the batteries out anymore.
But even if you could, there's still enough residual power that they can listen in for a couple minutes if they really want.
That's
And it is always like if I go, okay, Google, I'm gonna get a search in.
Yeah, you're right.
So it is always listening.
It's just the way it's so crazy, man. The way you're so dependent upon it, so it just takes away the whole stress about it. Like, hey, yeah, who cares? We're machines now. I mean, we're totally okay with it. We don't need. No one needs to have our consent.
Alright, this is gonna record sound only, so I'm not gonna worry about that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have total. We need. That's the next thing we need. Is
Cross training?
No, a tech guy who just like literally is on call.
Also, this is recorded sound on video right now.
I'm
That's fine too.
I'm
So
not
we're
able.
podcast.
I'm not able to get into that for some reason. I don't know why.
That's fine. We'll
Okay.
like we'll get some audio. All right.
And that video works.
We're recording.
Yeah, my phone's going right.
That's
It's
fine.
flashing red. Yeah, it's flashing red. It's
You
good.
sure?
Yeah. I can do a quick double check.
Yeah, it's flashing.
I have because I have a remote.
All right. So what are we talking about?
How about you guys?
Yeah, man.
Well, first of all, thanks for having us.
No,
yeah,
my pleasure.
appreciate it. You know,
My
appreciate
pleasure.
this. This was fun.
Video podcast take one.
All right, Assalamu alaikum, Mamluk Nation and Safina Society Nation. We here doing a collaboration, wrapping it up, flying back out tonight. I just have a few minutes to talk to Dr. Shadee and Alex. My water's on the hell. Just about how you guys got started, and like a little bit about your background. So, Dr. Shadee, why don't you start about you? Like you're from South Jersey, you said?
So I'm from Toms River,
Okay.
which they might try to claim it's Central Jersey, but it's probably more South Jersey. So it's South Jersey, and back in those days, you grew up alone. There were very few Muslims around. The idea even of seeing Muslims wherever you walk, the way we have it here in we're in North Brunswick, and more so in North Jersey, and where you guys are,
Yeah.
that thing didn't exist. I remember I was probably like 12 or maybe 14. The first time I was in Virginia and saw a Muslim woman went in the aisles, I was like shocked. That's how few we were. If you remember, we were so few back in those days. The activity was so little. Okay. And then it exploded around the 2000, 2001, 2002. The population just was obviously grew. It was noticeable. So Islam was something just you knew about it in your mind, but it wasn't something that was right up there. There wasn't activity. There was any activity there was probably something like really hard to stomach. Like, some of the conferences. Do you remember Mayan conferences?
Yeah. I never went, but I know what they
Yeah. So they would bring in sheikhs from Egypt, and you didn't really get excited about it.
Yeah.
The parents did. You never really attended any of the sessions or anything. And some of the conferences were totally in Arabic.
They had some in Chicago
conference
too.
in Arabic.
Did you know Arabic growing up?
Egyptian Arabic, Armenian.
Okay.
And so at that time though, what exposure I did have of Islam, I loved it, right? And there was some exposure that was like too tough, and I avoided it, right? Like at the time, the deen there was not like an attractive, beautiful thing. The concept of like love the deen, love the prophet, all that didn't exist, right? It did not exist. And some of the examples were not the best examples. Right? Some of even the leadership were not the best examples that inspired you to move on. So finally, like most people, the main source that we got was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. And we had some Egyptian sheikhs coming, and I benefited greatly from them. A lot of them some of them even had like a presence to them that you knew that there was something else going on that made you love Salah, love memorizing Quran and things like that.
Yeah, that's true. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was our main.
And then Sheikh Hamza was the one that sort of brought it together in the sense that your cultural background and this deen. And there was so many new things that he brought. You all know that default Islam was Salafiyyah, which is I actually call it, which is everyone knows it's called Taymiyyah, right? This is the more accurate. They should be honest, and this is the more accurate thing. So I refuse to say give it a universalized
But
thing. You
no,
know, it's
it's-
Taymiyyah.
You know, but when some folks even say that's Wahhabiyya is a more accurate term because there's like things that Ibn Abdul Wahhab did that wasn't necessarily on the views of the Taymiyyah's views. That's
Yeah.
digress too much.
Yeah, so, well, they have to rebrand, you know that, every few years they have to rebrand. Because by the time people catch up on what it actually is. So now they're rebranding as Ethity, but we don't need to go there. But you know how, it wasn't a nice thing, it was like a tough thing. So he came in and he brought a lot of new things. And some of the things that he didn't really intend to bring up was around him, right? Was around him. And that initiated I would say like there was a nice phase, a sweet phase, where you just got the tapes, right? And this was great. And I would listen to the same tape over and over and over and over in my car, right? And I had one VHS, and I would just watch it over and over and over and over. I'd never seen someone speak, and you couldn't really tell whether what background he was, right, at the time. So you never seen anyone speak like that, have style.
Right.
He had power,
Yeah.
right, aggressive, and you benefited from everything that he said. And then
This is like mid-90s, like 94, 93-ish kind of?
like 95, 97.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
for me it was
Later
97.
no,
For
yeah.
me, for me it was 97.
Yusuf Islam used to come on the Islam circuit too back then. I
Yeah.
remember watching an old video of them.
That was exciting, but there wasn't direction.
Okay.
Hamza used to give you direction. Like
Okay.
today, you're doing this.
Yeah.
And I would write down anything dua that he said, and I would say it. And I would pick it up every morning and say it. And I didn't know what I was doing, but it was working.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was working. And
Not only that, he was a revolutionary voice. Like he was empowering you.
by the way, who else was on the circuit? Who
Siraj-
else was
Siraj
out?
al-Hajj.
Okay, Siraj al-Hajj. Who else was there?
Khalid Yassin.
Dawood Adib.
Yeah.
Right.
Khalid Yassin.
Adib.
Sheikh Ali Tamimi.
There weren't a lot of people,
But
right?
Sheikh Ali Tamimi was more specialized to the Salafi crowd in the mid-90s.
So look, there were like maybe 4 or 5 names. It wasn't like today a long list, and every year there's 5 new people coming
Bilal
back.
Phillips.
And Bilal Phillips was on there, and
But he didn't come to America, did he?
No, he didn't come to America.
but his tapes were around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tapes were
We
there.
there was no concept. No concept of madhab. For me, there was no concept. It was just Islam. That was all it is.
Yeah.
And it was a sweet phase. I'm telling. For me, it was like a 6-7 month period where all I had was the tapes, right? And I'm telling you, I benefited. I would wake up feeling so much. I didn't even know what it is. I was feeling so much tranquility because I was practicing everything that he said and daydreaming about what it's like in the desert of Mauritania. Just daydreaming. And then, at the time, ironically, there was a Mauritanian kid named Al-Wali, right? I mean, think about the name, right? There was somehow a Mauritanian old sheikh, a man, he dropped his son off to be educated in America. Well, he just threw his son in America, right? And he ends up in Toms River, New Jersey, in 1997. Could you imagine that, right? It's my first year at college. And this guy, Al-Wali,
Where'd you go to? You were at George Washington.
no, Rutgers.
Rutgers for undergrad. Okay.
Yeah. Al-Wali, he's hanging around the masjid, and his ways are so simple that I'm just sitting there looking at him like this. Like when he would eat at our house, he'd come to our house, he'd take a cereal bowl, and he'd go around to the food and put everything in one bowl, and sit on the floor, squat, and eat it with a spoon. Everything from one bowl, right? And he would like cut grass for us, do chores, and then he'd have dinner with us, right? And the distance, he was so distant from what we call dunya. To me, it was like something to look at, right?
And he's from like Nouakchott or like the villages
from
of
Nouakchott.
Okay, so
But-
from the city.
And Nouakchott in the 90s was probably like
A village.
a village,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
it's a village with a bunch of buildings.
I got
Not
you.
even high buildings.
To me, that was the sweet period. And I say that because I was benefiting a lot, but I wasn't engrossed in drama. When I went to Morocco, then there were some people around Sheikh Hamza that were drama prone and loved to bring up issues. No, maybe they were right about the issues, right? But they caused a lot of conflict in my mind, right? A lot of conflict. And from that period on, became, to me, a period of like internal conflict of why are some people attacking this aqidah? Why are some people saying it's bad? Isn't aqidah, what's wrong with tawheed? Isn't it la ilaha illallah and that's it? So that period started, and I had a lot of confusion, and I think premature exposure to Sufism is a problem. I actually think that if it's premature, it's no good. And for me, it was way premature. And
Are
I
you
got
talking about Sufism itself? or-
tariqas, turuq.
No, so I understand what you mean. So the reason why I'm asking is I think there's a fine line. Is it being exposed to the turuq or the tariqa, or people talking about how to not just refute but defend the ideas of the tariqa?
It links to what determines your actions, all right, and what determines truth.
I see what you're
And
saying.
if you ever get caught up in that, well, this karama happened, so whatever he says is absolute truth, right? And you treat it like an ijma'i truth that you can't talk to a Muslim who doesn't believe what that shit says.
I see what you're saying.
Or you're so young and naive that you actually hold that that chick is the only true interpreter of the matter, right? And that he has all the ghaybiyat. That type of jahl, it sent me for a spin, right? For about a couple years. Alhamdulillah, Allah pulls people out of these things.
Oh, so you're actually a part of an understanding.
I was involved in all that, and I was really knee deep, and it distracted me from the real
That's a
bricklaying of the deen. And that's why anyone who comes around, I'll tell them, Tasawwuf is X, Y, and Z. We're not negating it. Awliya exists, but you don't even know how to recite Fatiha. Right? So we're not discussing, and you're not getting stories of the awliya, a printout that I have, right? You're not getting that. Because you can't drown in that ocean.
Gotta put in the legwork first, right?
Yeah, you gotta build this level by level. So we all learn from experience, I guess. And then, but from his example, I'm telling you, I never looked back. I was a bit traumatized by how the way it progressed in a different way than I thought. That the dars, the class, the sit-down class, and let's learn our fiqh and let's pray to Hajj, that sort of decreased, and more conference setting. In England, it was friend's house, and it was this big hall and talks, and I didn't really like that stuff. So I was a bit upset about that, but everything happens for a reason. But I'm still on that old stuff. If I say, how do I want to live? I want to live on that old stuff, which was hardcore nuts and bolts classes, to tahajjud, improve yourself, care about the ummah, and that fundamentals. And that's what I want to produce in Safina Society. What I thought that for a period of a few years was what everyone was doing, right? And then things changed, right? That's what I would like to get back to.
So your Safina Society, mashallah, initiative is experience-based, and the journey that you've been through, you're telling people, listen, I've been there, I've done that, now this is how I think it should be done.
Everyone's been around the block. If you lived and made decisions and traveled around, you have experiences. You take from those experiences what's going to work, and now the time for going and journeying around and checking stuff out is over. I've seen what I've seen, right? I'm not going to go and try to see something new. I think I've seen a lot, enough to make a judgment call, and the judgment call is that what Zaytuna Institute was upon in like 98, 97, 98, that type of thing, that to me is what benefited, and to me is what I think will benefit people.
That's interesting. You mentioned something
That's
before we started the podcast. You said that I'm paraphrasing, but I want you to kind of elaborate on that for a minute if you can. You said something to the degree of any initiative that you start or any platform that you have, it should only be about Allah, or something to that degree.
So a lot of dawah is done now in the name of, we need to be inclusive, we need to bring people under the umbrella, right? All right, those are all nice things, but that to me is, that's not the first reason you go out and do dawah. Right? The first reason you go out and do dawah is to connect people to Allah Ta'ala. And yeah, we know how to connect to Allah. What is the purpose of knowledge if we don't know how? I'm not saying we're successful all the time, but we do know how, which is there's aqa'id, beliefs, awamir, commandments, nawahi, prohibitions, and akhlaq, and tazkiyat an-nafs. And you do it, and you work on it. Every day, you work on it, you work on it. Maybe one day, it's like when you're out at the ocean and you see, like whale watching. Maybe you see something, maybe you're not. But you're working on it every day. Maybe you see a sign of Allah's acceptance, maybe not. But you work on it every day. And that, in order to do that, if you have an end goal, you need a route, right? So anything successful begins with the end goal first. Define the end goal, then you define the route. So the end goal is nearness to Allah Ta'ala, so that when we're old, when we're dying on our deathbeds, we know that we put in time, and that we know that we're going to Allah with this ibadat, these beliefs, and we believe that that's what's correct, and we ask Allah to forgive our sins. And we're afraid because of our sins, but we know that this is what we did. This is a path, right? A path, when you have a path, you have to outline a clear path for people. Like you go to the Garden State Park where their signs are clear, the path is clear, right? The highways, there are lanes, but it's one highway. They can't tell you that, well, there's a, hey, you want to go down to Florida? Well, you can take Parkway a little bit, then you can take 95. Well, then you can take another route here. Well, by the time 5 minutes are done, you're confused. So this concept of unity, to me, that's not the main issue. The main issue is, are we drawing near to Allah Ta'ala? So you need one clear path, right? So for us, Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Aqaid of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and the fiqh of one of the four madhabs. Okay? That's how simple it is. Does it get any simpler? Eliminate reformism. And I'm going to eliminate Taymiism because Taymiism has caused problems. That's just anecdotal. You could just go out and look. And anyone who denies that the followers of Ibn Taymiyyah, where they go, there's a lot of problems. Fitna. So that, Shi'ism, and Goofism. Right? So you eliminate four main issues. Four issues are just push them aside. They're going to cause problems. They're not right. And what you have left is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and the four madhabs. Fiqh of the four madhabs. Plus.
And, from the layman's perspective, this is not a polemical thing, right? So it's not like, okay, let's go refute all of these things. There's no point in refuting that. It's clear. It's one of those things that's so clear that you shouldn't even have to argue it. You just make your presentation, and anybody that's being genuine and honest and looking at it with genuine eyes should be able to see it. Which is why the vast majority of Muslims throughout the vast majority of Muslim history have been upon that.
The historical precedent is ridiculous.
I have a question about to Alex. Was this kind of nuts and bolts approach something about Islam that attracted you? Because you've been Muslim like 25 years or 26 years now, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we talk about how converts need this. We need to be embracing. They're leaving. They have all these issues because you don't know what kind of background they're coming from. They got kicked out of their house. We would be very soft with them. Not the impression I get from you, really, but like that's not what you feel converts should deal with. But it seems like that's the kind of approach that's worked for you.
Well, so, for everybody it's going to be different.
Yeah.
My background, very, very quickly, is that I grew up religious, though not like going to church all the time.
Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I really did believe when I was a little kid I wanted to be a priest. I was serving the community, and that God would be great. But I also realized that I wanted to get married, and so that was out. Right? I talked to my parish priest. I was like, is there any excuse for not? And he said, there's no exceptions. And I was like, well, it's been nice. I'm not going to pursue that route. I'll do something else with my life. And then, so when I learned about Islam, and I became convinced very, very quickly that the Prophet ﷺ was a prophet of Allah, I said, all right, well, that's it. So I have to embrace this. So for me, there was never any question about that, and it wasn't something that I needed to be convinced of strongly because I already believed in God.
And this is when you're 19 years old.
19,
Yeah.
And so after that, my parents had an okay reaction. I mean, they had concerns. This is pre 9/11, so their concerns weren't that strong, but they had concerns. This is weird to us. It's different. What are you gonna do? But they also weren't like the church going type. I was more religious than my parents, so they weren't like, oh my God, you're going to hell. They were like, well, you're doing your own thing. Good luck. So it's very easy for me on that. Allah made that path very easy for me. So I can't really comment on people who had it more difficult in that regard.
Sure.
Or people who maybe their the firmness of their iman is it might waver because of external issues. Allah freed me from all of that. Alhamdulillah. So all I can do is be grateful. But in terms of the rest of it is, I was the only Hispanic Muslim I knew existed in the world. Like I know there was some in Spain.
That's how it was back in the day.
Yeah, I know there was some in Spain hundreds of years ago. I might be the only Muslim, right? Like I had never heard of this before. I didn't even know that there were many white Muslims. Like the whole thing seemed, besides like Bosnians, right?
So you were hung up on culture either. Because a lot of times I talk to people who like Islam they get it, but they're like, yeah, but like I need to see some Chinese Muslims, or I need to see some white
No,
Muslims.
like I didn't care about
that stuff came later. And when he became Muslim,
the
convert came in hardcore. And he was probably a more serious Muslim than the ethnic Muslims, the born Muslims.
So 25 years, that would be like 93, right? 92.
92.
Wow,
These were
mashallah.
hardcore.
92, and it was in East Orange. Dawood Adib had just left, and Ahmed Bukhari was there, and he for a short period, and then after him, it was Abu Muslim. So for my first 3 years as a Muslim, I was living in that area.
Yeah.
And I was going to Jaffa Sunni before it was where it is now, when it was still on.
So that's your junior year, sophomore, junior, and senior of college.
No, it was my freshman, sophomore, and junior year.
At what college?
It was Upsala College, but I ended up
Up
folding
north. Oh, okay.
in East Orange. So I spent my first 3 years there, and to me that was just the default, right? You're a Muslim. There's Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. These people who talk about madhabs are bid'ahis. You know that whole bit.
Yeah, like the two people that said the word madhab ever at that
We
time,
affirm,
right?
Aqidah was stuff like the Aqidah that we were taught was stuff like we affirm whatever Allah says about His attributes.
Yeah.
If He has a hand, He has a hand, and we don't say we don't get into the case, right?
Yeah.
And so that was our Aqidah, and I was like, yeah, that's the safe way to be. I didn't buy into a lot of, and like we've spoken, I didn't buy into a lot of like this group is out and that group is probably kafir. I didn't get into it, alhamdulillah. But I did believe that this was the safe and easy route and the best thing possible. And to quote something I heard from Sheikh years later, basically the default is Salafism, and anything outside of it needs a dalil, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna say something that's different from Salafism. What's your proof, right? And I never considered that there wasn't any necessarily a proof for their approach. So that was my introduction to it. I mentioned all that to answer your question. I had to do a lot of adjusting, right? The onus was on me. I'm coming into a religion. There's already an established community here. They have their values. They have their rules.
Right.
They have their interactions. There's language barriers. I have to pick up language. I have to pick up terminology. I have to adjust to expectations, and I can't expect them to adjust to me because they're so happy that I'm coming into their community.
Sure.
Like it's the same as being. Some people might not like this, and I don't care. It's the same as like you're a guest in someone's home, right?
Right.
Some big family is hosting you.
Yeah.
You don't expect they're gonna do a lot for you because of their adab, right? But you can't expect any of them. You should be not asking for anything, and you should try to be as unintrusive as possible to try to fit into their routine as much as you can, so that you're being a good guest.
Sure.
Right. So yes, there's an onus on the Muslim community to be good to people that come in and to help them out. Likewise, there's an onus on you coming in to try to adjust to all of these people, especially if they have traditions for 1,000, 1,400 years of this religion as part of their culture. Don't go around telling them that that's culture and you don't need to give that any deference.
Yeah.
There's this phenomenon now where we've absorbed the complaining and entitled attitude that's prevalent in the West. By the way, why don't you bring it closer all the way to the table?
Oh, I tried on the table. It wasn't getting everybody in. Yeah.
So we've absorbed that, and for a while it was trendy to just go up there, make a post, make a video, to just whine and complain. That's all it is. The local mosque did this or that, right? Whining. I don't feel welcome.
Now you got the unmasked movement as a
Yeah.
result of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so why are you focusing on them? If you think about it, you're focusing on them. They're just created beings. They're creation. The first lesson is don't focus on creation. Focus on yourself, Allah. You don't like it, change it. Right? So those mosques, are they some default setting part of the earth? Like a mountain part of the earth? Or a human being registered the mosque, rented out the space, collected the money, and paid for it. You're a human being too. Go, register your own mosque. Walk with the feet Allah gave you, right? Get some money, look at real estate, okay? Drive around, get money from your friends. If they're so bad, but they're good enough to have done that, they're smart enough with their brains. They're so dumb and they're so not inclusive, so bad and all that.
Backward.
So backward, but they're smart enough they have enough willpower and wherewithal to go and rent out the hall, face all the hardships of figuring out, well, what are we going to do next? Well, why don't you do the same thing?
Without CBE money.
without having to use some kind of like whining narrative as a motivator.
And the other thing is, you have to accept whether you're coming into the religion brand new or you're starting to practice more and be more involved in the community. You have to accept that the first step to that is you need to make changes. Like, you can't tell me that you're converting to a new religion or you've been not practicing all your life and now all of a sudden you want to participate in the masjid life, but that you don't know that you have to make some big changes in the way that you do things.
You have to answer some uncomfortable truths about yourself.
Correct.
Do some reflection. And that's one of the main things I feel like in some of our youth today, they're not willing to accept some horrible truths that they have ingrained in their psyche.
They're not even youth anymore. They're in their 30s now.
You're right,
Like,
right,
they're
right.
grown people.
You're grown
Yeah.
people, and you're now looking to assign blame on external factors for upsetting whatever you've established is supposed to be the status quo in society.
I feel that we always have to get back to the question of why. The why is most important. The what and the how come after that. Right? How is like almost the last thing. But the why. Why are we doing this stuff? Doing this stuff because we truly believe in Allah Ta'ala. Right? We truly believe in the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Then the what is, okay, well, what are we going to do? What are we doing about this? Got to do something about this. And then the how, that's where the furu'ah comes in, the details of how to worship, how to interact, right? How to do stuff. If we plug into the how first, okay, and we disagree on the how, but we haven't addressed the why, then even everything is invalid. We gotta always go back to the why. And if the why is always a personal question.
Yeah.
That gives a person personal depth. And that allows him to get through hardships in the future. So we always have to ask, why are we here? Because are we here because we need a social network of friends to be part of? If that's the answer, they're human beings, they could let us down. If we're here because I'm here to get benefit for myself, right? My conscience, and what I know is truth, then at that point, if you bother me or you bother me, all right, someone bothers me, I just push it aside because I'm not here to deal with that. Right? I'm not here to deal with that stuff. And I feel that has to be brought up a lot. So that if I go to the masjid and, okay, well, the guy didn't really treat me well, okay, and the carpet is all dusty, am I going to go write a review? I'm not here for that. Why? Why am I here? To be distracted by the rugs? Like, we're going to Hajj, inshallah, people are going to Hajj. Are you going to go? Why are you going? Are you going to be distracted? Allah's going to test your claim. You're coming for Allah? Allah will test you with what? A security guard who doesn't treat you well. An airport person who doesn't treat you well. To see, are you going to be distracted? Or are you going to stay focused on the why? So answer the why and eliminate everything else.
That reminds me, both of y'all have been to Hajj before, right?
I've been told where I have been to Hajj.
Okay, so like I remember my wife and I went to Hajj in 2015, and we did the setup where we left, and we were in Medina first, and they were like, hey, you got to leave your bags out this time, and then we'll come and get them, and we'll throw them in the bus. I thought it meant by midnight. I didn't think it meant at midnight, so I put them at like 10 p.m. And I get back to my room, and my wife's like, our bags are gone. I'm like, yeah, they told us to put our bags, we came to pick it up. It's like, they said at midnight. I was like, they're already gone. Like, our roommates still have their bags out here. Like, oh, I found out later that another group did their bag claim around 10:30. And they actually meant midnight, not like by midnight, but actually at midnight. So we had all our stuff there, like iPads, like $1,000 of cash, all this stuff, right?
That's one.
You know what I'm saying? So like we only had like one like
And
carry
where'd it go? Where'd the bus go?
It went to it was going to Mecca where we were going, but on another group, some Arab speaking group called Tayyar or something, right? And then so I asked my wife, we talked to each other, we were like, listen, if we knew in advance that we were going to lose you're going to come to Hajj, you're going to lose your bag, you're going to lose your 2 iPads, you're going to lose like X amount of cash, would we still take the deal? And we're like, yeah, we would have.
That's a great mentality. That's a great mentality.
So then we actually did find our bags 2 days later.
That's great.
We got to Mecca, and then like my roommates in Azizia were our Arab uncles, and I just put them on the phone and I got a number, because like the brothers, there were still some brothers from the group still hanging around from the Arab group, and they spoke a little bit of English, and they were able to like give me a contact, and then we linked up and we were in Mecca. So
That's really cool. That's really cool.
And who made the decision to put the bags out at 10?
me.
So it's also a big test for your wife, and she passed.
No, I give her a lot of credit, because normally she would have popped off and like whatever, but she was real cool about it.
That all goes back to the why. Why are we here? And are we going to allow ourselves to be distracted? The first lesson with Sheikh Hamza in Fez, Morocco was, you're here to study.
Was that a rihla you went
That
on?
was the rihla. That was the second ever. Well, the first one they did was in somewhere in England.
Yeah.
One of these shires. Nottinghamshire.
Oh, Shire, like from Hobbit and those kind of.
One of these
That's what I was thinking.
places.
Oh.
And then the second one was and one of the first lessons was, you're here to study. You're gonna see a lot of nice things. Keep your eye down. Don't look. So literally, I took it literally. I took everything seriously. Everything serious. And we went, and we would pass by the marketplace, and I would not look at the market. I would just look at the class, the teacher, the notebook, make salah, go back, study, and I'm not looking at anything. Now you think like you're going to Morocco, so you're looking at everything, right? And we saved that to the end. When he said so, like we said, okay, now's the weekend where you do your shopping, which was like the last weekend.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So this idea of be feeling entitled or expecting or being so easily distracted is wrong. And anyone who has any disputes in a masajid, in the mosque, in the family, or on the internet, go back to the why, right? Why? What is the benefit of this discussion? Just shut it off. On these phones, just shut it off. That's not the existing reason why I live. I'm not here reason why I'm having discussions to try to prove someone right or wrong. I'll just shut it off, right? And I'm telling you, you shut down your social media, stay off of it for 2 weeks, for 2 months. When you get back, nothing changed. Like you missed nothing.
You're right.
It's a huge illusion.
Show
right?
show the camera your phone.
Oh, where is that?
Show
No.
the-
I don't even know where I put it.
I actually was like,
Dr. Shadee practices what he preaches. He's not just saying.
So this is
I was
actually,
actually inspired by
this
him.
is the smartphone actually. This is the smartphone because this is a phone where you eliminate your headaches, you eliminate your knee-jerk reactions online, which why people get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
And it even takes you a long time to text, so it gives you a moment
Exactly.
to think about what you're gonna say.
And I like the way you said that, sorry, because we know that, mashallah, you are an attorney, and you also had something as far as gender studies. I know this may be very irrelevant, but the reason why I'm bringing this up in the Safina Society, you guys have a really awesome team, mashallah, but he brings in something very profound. He's kind of like the gentleman who's like the wise man, older than everybody else.
Not only
Who
that,
has the most
it's like-
experience.
the
I'm talking about life experience, life experience. And he's like that
That's just-
voice
that's
every
just
time
age.
something happens. Like, I would have never thought, hey, text messaging takes longer so you can think. I would have never thought, but I feel that his life and everything he's built up to, he always has his golden input with
well,
you guys.
he
mashallah.
has a knack for something which is discovering sort of resources and commentary that most people I've never come across or most people have never come
No,
across.
me neither, man. Mashallah. That's what
And
I'm
that's
really happy
exact
about this
purpose.
trip.
That's the exact role that Moeen was looking for, right?
Yeah, I give
Got a lot
I give
more than he
credit.
bargained for.
I give credit to my mom. She's one of the most well-read people I've ever known.
Really?
And she only went to school until the 6th grade. But she,
Oh,
to this
wow.
day, she's 75. She still reads about a book every 2 minutes now. She's still that.
English?
In Spanish mostly. Yeah. So I mean, like if you go to her house, it's just like books wall to wall.
Wow.
Really?
She's read them all.
so
Yeah.
you were researching feminism before, what, in like late 90s or like 2000?
Yeah. Well, my major in college was U.S. history,
Okay.
and my focus was like civil rights
Yeah.
and the concomitant social justice movements that grew up around it. So like feminism, it was starting to be the beginning of like gay rights movements like that.
Yeah.
And not because I was like come home. I was very pro civil rights, right?
Okay.
That was my interest, and that's why I pursued that initially.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to law school, and so having a background in civil rights, there's a lot of litigation involved, so it's a good background to prep me for law school.
Sure.
But then when you study that, you're going to end up studying, especially feminism, because that group that started growing really, really strong, and popular in the 70s. And man, you just see it all from the inside, and you see how ridiculous a lot of it is. There's a lot of people who might think that when they hear us saying something about transgender rights or gay rights or whatever new group is claiming rights, that we're just having knee-jerk reactions and we're being like, oh, we don't buy that because we're Muslim. That's not it at all. At least not from my perspective. I've seen the inside workings. I know it in detail. My senior capstone project was on the development of intersectionality in third wave feminism.
And what year is this like?
This is in the mid to late 90s.
Subhanallah.
And-
Before it all started, man.
Yeah, and then when I went to law school, I took classes on critical legal theory, which is the same as critical race theory, which is not really a thing at all, actually. And again, you get to see if you study it, and you study it even under people who strongly believe in it,
Yeah.
Like my professors in undergrad were all like, one of them, his father had been an attorney for the Communist Party in like the 1450s. Like that's his, he's coming from it totally.
We gotta have a separate podcast with him.
Yeah, we'll
We'll
Skype you in, inshallah.
We have to.
Inshallah.
We have to within the next few months probably, or within the next half year, inshallah, because this is really interesting. And we, I know this is your thing, but I just looked at the time and it's what is it, 1:24 right now? I think it's at 1:30.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us a little bit about Hajj and what's happening with you and Safina Society? And Hajj?
This is the first year that Ihya Tours start a Hajj group, and some brothers out from Allentown, Pennsylvania. I got invited to it. I was lucky, alhamdulillah, fortunate for them to invite me to it. I think there are 3 spots left, but this is the first year I'll be going since 1994. Right, so things have changed drastically. So I'm myself like prepping as much as I can. So I'll be going there. Sheikh Yahya and Mufti Yusuf from Virginia. I don't know if you know him, but we'll be going together. Each one of us will be responsible for a bus of, I think, 40 people, and all our jobs will be to give like the little anecdotes or little short reminders, and to be able to answer people's questions. Of course, Hajj is one of those things, though, you have to experience it in order to know even the questions that come up. Like, you can't study it, because the questions that, if you study it, you need to study it from someone who made a write-up recently, because everything's changing, right, from year to year in terms of physically where you move around, where you go.
It's going to be all theoretical to study the books of fiqh.
Yeah, exactly.
You have
So
to be there.
yeah, so you're just going to study the skeleton of it. But again, my main thing that I'm trying to talk to people is that think of the why. Why are you here? You should know that you're going to be tested. Don't go and say, I paid $9,000 and the bus is late, right? You know the Prophet said, Al-Hajju mashaqqa. So whether he uses your tour guide as a means for that, to bring you hardship, or he uses, whoever else as a cause, you have to view them only as a cause, right? They're a cause to test you. And there are so many people who whine and complain about the tour guide promised this, the tour guide promised that, right? And we paid for this. And the tour guide, he's doing a business transaction. You're his customer. I tell them, you're not my customer, right? And I'm not your customer. I tell them, I'm not here for customer relations. He's bought me to sort of give you a perspective that's different. And the perspective is, don't look at this as a business transaction and whine and complain. Know that tests may come, may not come, right? May come from the tour guide, may come from some other cause, right? And if you don't like what I'm saying, then that's the beginning of the test, right?
I have a friend who I went to Hajj with. He said Hajj was so easy. He wasn't testing.
He was worried, huh?
He was worried. At the end, he was like.
That's actually one of the tests. There's one of the awliya, he had a murid, and he kept talking about trials and tribulations and how the Salihin get trials and tribulations. And he never had any trials and tribulations. So he was waiting and waiting and waiting, and like 2 weeks later, he said, Sheikh, my life is like so perfect, right? He said, that's your test, right? For Allah to see if you're going to be thankful enough, as opposed to waiting for the test to come to you and then just being patient. It's harder for nothing to happen and you from yourself to be thankful.
And anybody going to Hajj or Umrah now should be immensely thankful that they're not walking and riding camels.
Yeah.
Like just a couple hundred years ago, there's no planes and there was barely trains. Like you would have had to make a tremendous effort and take weeks just to get there.
Yes.
So the hardest part is made easy for you already. You sit on a plane, you sleep, air conditioning.
We have a few minutes left. Since you mentioned walking, there was obviously one of the giants of the Ummah passed away this week, Sheikh Mohammed al-Hajj. And I guess he got the name because he was known for, in his youth, he made the Hajj, he actually on foot, from Mauritania to...
His actual name is Al-Hajj.
Okay.
That's actually, his name is Muhammad Al-Hajj.
Muhammad al-Hajj, okay.
From what Sheikh Sadiq told us, that's his actual name. But he did walk to Hajj by himself. And not only that, my parents had a picture, it was like framed on the wall, of the Kaaba in the 70s.
Yeah.
Right? And that's when they went.
Yeah.
Like my mom went. It was still dirt around.
Yeah.
And it was still an oil lamps.
The Kaaba was the highest structure, right?
And it was a high structure, and there was little marketplaces around it, right? little marketplaces, and just to think of how much things changed, and to think how much the world has changed since the 70s. Imagine now what the world's going to be like in 2060, right? Well, my perspective is you can only keep going down. The pendulum can only swing one way for so long.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to turn to be drastically better, right? And that's going to be involved with divine intervention. Will definitely be involved in that. Right? So,
All right, with that being said, we'll wrap this puppy up. Jazakallah khair again for having
anytime,
us.
man.
I appreciate it so much.
Pleasure.
Did you just say
Great
puppy?
job.
Yeah, puppy. And before I forget, I want to make sure we got some gifts for y'all, party gifts.
Oh, great.
Swag, baby.
Yeah, let's see. We got some good sizes you guys are, but we
Alright,
got.
let's see.
We gonna show the camera. We got the.
Well, I'm a medium, but I identify as a large.
We got the Mad Mamluks.
You have to respect
So,
this.
take this one.
It's
Yeah.
medium, and then we got.
Hey, if you say you're large, you're large. I
And
can't
then,
say.
anyone an XL? Is side an XL on your team?
Yeah, he can take an XL.
Side take an
He's
XL.
tall.
All right.
Yeah, I'll take a large.
And then large for Moeen.
Yeah, large.
You guys can just pass it on to them.
Okay, good. Leave him here and then we'll pass him on.
Sounds good. All right. Well,
All right, man.
we'll appreciate everybody watching, and we'll hopefully do more of these. You
Yeah,
know?
inshallah, we'll
Inshallah.
be in touch. And anytime we're crossing paths, just bring your equipment.
And we'll make plans to come visit you guys in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Please,
inshallah.
please.
Absolutely.
Bring the whole squad.
Next year.
Inshallah.
I'll
All
already be
right.
at my house and you guys help.
Yeah, we'll be
Got my
coming next
family.
year.
Airbnb your his house
Okay, good.
for free.
He could just kick you. You could just
He
kick
was
you.
He was like free. Come on.
I'll have a call. I'll make a call to my father-in-law and just scare him a little bit. And I'm sending the family over there.
That would be tough.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
If you're giving us the house, are you going to be there too?
All right. Signing off. Salam alaikum.
Thanks, salam.
No, after I found out about the flip phone thing, man, I've really been contemplating it for a while.
Oh, it is. It's really great. It's really good. And the thing is,